Everybody go ahead and be so kind as to hit that like button. Thank you in advance. Okay, so like I said, first things first, we're going to go to now. I just want to recap for those of you who didn't tune in last night. So last night we talked about the GPS. I showed you all the proof, okay, how the GPS coordinates they didn't match. Okay, they didn't match. They literally didn't match, and had been altered. And I also showed you proof that they absolutely can be altered. And I told you why and how. We talked about the autopsy report being released, but they're not going to have it publicly or have it released to the public, which I think is such BS because we want to know exactly what happened. We want to know exactly what it showed. But the fact that they haven't released it publicly leads me to think that there's more shady shenanigans going on with it, that we already know, okay, how Stacey Turner gets down. We already know that, okay? So I think there's just more of that has gone on. Toxicology report hasn't come back as of yet, okay? I can't wait to see what does happen when it comes back. And here's the question. Now, when I told you all that Officer Tap Dancing Tatum with his nefarious self, when I told you all that, in fact, he said, we all heard him say it, okay, that whoever he's been talking to tells him that it's going to be 100% conclusive for there to be something in Nolan's system. Okay. And I said, how could he know that? Well, I believe if we listen to what this medium says, that's maybe how. Okay. And I'm not saying that let me just say for the record, let me just put my little thing on the screen in a minute because this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay. None of it's true. This is just for entertainment purposes only. That all being said. Now, I'm pulling up this clip from Don Lemon from earlier today. When I got off the morning live, that's when I saw that he had Ben Crump and Mrs. Christine Wansley on the show. Okay, so I'm going to share that. I'm sure you all have already seen it, but I want to give my commentary and my thoughts on that. So let's get into it. Lights up, like, and share. Okay, let's get ready to get into it. Let me get my overlay.
Day 2 of using the Peter Thomas Roth, the new product.
And so what does that mean? When do you find out? Have you heard anything from them?
We were made aware that the autopsy was complete. And because media started calling us, and I know the district attorney's office have reached out to the family, but we did not get a chance to talk to them before the news told us the autopsy was complete. We are scheduled to have a meeting with the district attorney's office next week. Whether that means they're going to reveal the autopsy results is unknown to us, but we're certainly going to inquire because, we have been begging for transparency the whole way, and we've tried to be very transparent with them, and we hope that they will be transparent with us, especially his family.
Yeah. So Ben, can they not release information to you? Because I know that, explain the process, because it goes to a grand jury. Now, do you know if they're going to be transparent with you or you don't, and how much you think they can or will reveal?
Well, I think they can. They can do what they want. We do cases all across America, and the district attorney and the governmental authorities have the authority to release information as they so deem to release it. Don Lemon, they could be transparent, or they can say, well, we're not going to release anything until the grand jury. And then that means we don't know when we're going to see it because nobody knows when they're going to conclude their report. And in George Floyd and Breonna Taylor cases like that, where you had governmental authorities trying to be transparent, they would release information to try to build public trust. what are they going to do in Mississippi? We do not know if they're going to release it. They may say, we're not going to release anything at all until the grand jury, and the grand jury might convene. You just never know.
You said the grand jury might convene. You cut out for a second, Ben.
They could convene anytime the district attorney's office says that we've completed our investigation. It's all up to them. It could be next week. It could be 2 or 3 months. We have no control over when the grand jury is convened and when the district attorney decides to release information.
Why did it take Mississippi so long to get results? And do you know why they've been so quiet?
I don't want to speculate. I know oftentimes they would offer that they're waiting for a toxicology report. So why it took as long as it did, but we hope that they will be transparent with us, because as Dr. Mitchell, who conducted the independent autopsy at the behest of the family, Don Lemon, articulated, he shared that he would not be able to tell if the airways were obstructed, if the lungs were filled with water, because by the time he got Nolan's body, the organs had already been dissected. And so he would have to depend on the observations of the state medical examiner, who would have gotten Nolan's body immediately once they recovered it.
I want to ask you, so that's the only way that you're going to know if the independent autopsy and the state autopsy, if they indeed match up with each other. So 2 questions. That's the only way you're going to know. So one would think that they'd have to be transparent, or at least they'd want to, so that you can combine the two, because they'd want to get to the bottom of it. If there's some discrepancy with one or the other, that can be really, beneficial to finding out what happened to Nolan. And so what happens if the results in Mississippi don't align with the evidence shown so far? That's that's a big deal.
Yeah, and oftentimes, Don, you do find that you have differences in autopsies. I know I've handled several cases where the state medical examiner concludes one thing and an independent medical examiner concludes another. And then you have to put it before a grand jury and they decide. Or even more profound, the matter then goes to an actual jury trial in whether it's criminal proceeding or not, or civil proceeding. And so it really is about what you said, trying to be transparent with one another and seeing if we can figure out why you get these conclusions. And remember this, Don, autopsy is not the end all. It's still other factors that are important as well. Remember, Dr. Roger Mitchell said, even if the conclusion is he died from a drowning, then the questions become, what was the condition of his body before he entered the water? Was he conscious or was he unconscious? Was he forced into the water, or was he not forced into the water? So all of these become very important variables as you look at it. And I'm saying this, and I'm here with Christine and Elmore as we go to Cincinnati, Ohio, to speak to a lot of young people, high school students and so forth, at the Omega Conclave Convention. So I'm sensitive. We're talking about autopsy, and I know this gets a little emotional.
Well, that's why I want to ask Miss Christine, who's there, and Mr. Elmore there as well. Miss Christine, thank you so much.
I'm gonna hand the phone to Christine.
Okay. I know that it's difficult for you to listen to this, and I was keenly aware that you're in the background and you're having to deal with this. I wrote something this morning in my newsletter, and I said that you have been wanting transparency, about around this. First of all, good morning. Thank you for joining us. But you have been wanting transparency around this, but hearing the actual words and the results or whatever, that is extremely difficult. You want transparency, but then to be able to hear it is heart-wrenching. It's really a double-edged sword.
It is. And honestly, it's one of those things when we're sitting in it, because we have not been able to fully grieve, right? So there's a bit of disassociation that occurs. And I too have to just always take a moment to step back and be like, okay, however it goes, right? Like it has to in some way, like it has to be accepted. But again, I can't fully accept the answers and things that were told to us at the beginning because it was too soon. There was no investigation. Stories did not align. And so for people to say, hey, you know, why can't you just accept it as a drowning and be done, and those things that have occurred.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that's why we needed that independent autopsy. We needed to make sure that whatever was found was true. But of course, when you don't have the complete picture, that also, you know, kind of makes you question even more, like, what exactly are we dealing with? And we need that. Like my husband and I, our family, we need those questions answered.
When you got the news that the autopsy for the state autopsy was done, what went through what was that like for you? What did you think?
I said, oh, wow. But then again, you know, like Attorney Crump said, the DA did reach out. Actually, I had texted the victim's advocate, Amanda, saying, hey, were there any updates with the autopsy? I know the coroner told us it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the toxicology report to come back, which I know that was kind of the main thing they were stressing. And so then I think that afternoon, so today is what? So I think that was maybe a day or two ago, the DA had called and I missed the call. And by the time I saw it, it was too late and I wasn't going to call her at 9 o'clock because I've had to change the settings on my phones because of the harassing phone calls I've been getting.
I want to talk to you about all of that. But just one more thing before we go into that. I just spoke with Ben about transparency. What are you hoping from Mississippi, whoever's releasing this information, whether it be the medical examiner's office, the state, or the DA? What would you like from them? You want to hear everything, I'm sure.
I would like for everyone to just do their job. I would like for everyone to treat this as if this was their child or their family member and give us the same honesty, transparency, and respect that they would expect for them or their family.
Amen. Now, can we talk about the other stuff? You went there, so I feel like I can go there because I've been bothered by it. We've been reporting on it. It's disgusting. I'm going to start with one thing, and then I'll talk about the harassment of you, and especially as a mother and then as a medical professional, and I know you take your profession very seriously when you said, I love everybody, black, white, red, green, it does not matter. So do not get that wrong. And you've always had really good reviews. But I want to talk about this blaming the victim and smearing the victim. The reports that we've been hearing, no, Nolan was drinking, he was doing this, he was doing that. Why? You know, I guess we know why they're doing it, but I want to know what your assessment is, how you feel about that, because even let's just say that he was, I'm not saying that he was, let's just saying that whatever he was doing, that doesn't mean that you have to die. Then that doesn't mean he was the only one.
Exactly.
And what do you think young people do? On my senior trip, I was, out there, right? So I'm just saying, kids have fun. So what does that have to do with anything? That's what I don't understand. What's your assessment on this?
Honestly, I feel like that is a way, which we've seen this before, right? Pattern recognition. We've seen this where things have happened, especially when we talk about the Black community. And, after the death, it's a smear campaign. It's, what can we find out about this person? What can we say? And, that's something, my family and I, especially my husband and I, we definitely do not appreciate. But we can't fight everyone that wants to have an opinion. But also, too, it's part of society. that has been allowed to occur, which is it's gut-wrenching at best. Because if you were in our situation, how would you feel if there were millions of people who are saying, oh, hey, well, he was at an island, he was heavily drunk. And again, even with the drinking, there are so many conflicting stories, only because I have spoken with adults who knew Nolan very well, coaches that were out there. One in particular, I think he told me he saw Nolan somewhere between like 2:45 and 3:30. He was like, Christine, yeah, we talked for a while. We talked about college. We talked about his life, his plans. And he was like, he was perfectly fine. Because I think it had bothered him too, that there was this narrative of, oh, he was sloppy drunk. Like and it started at the very beginning. It was, oh, he was sloppy drunk. And I'm like, but was he though? Or is this a narrative that you guys want to use to kind of have us just accept that it was a drowning?
Are you prepared for this? I know that's tough, and that's a yes and no.
Honestly, it's hard to be prepared in any way with the way we have been thrusted onto the national stage and just kind of everything. And it's going to take a long time. So even, God willing, when we do get honest, transparent answers, right? Even when we get those answers, it's still going to take a moment, not even a moment. It's still going to take a while for us to digest and really accept that. Because again, and this is just me now speaking from a medical standpoint, we're kind of stuck in one of the stages of grief because we don't have answers. And that's the thing people don't understand. Everyone grieves differently. You hit those stages of grief at different times, and sometimes you feel like they might go on at the same time. But right now, we're kind of just stuck, and we can't move forward because we don't have answers.
So when you talk about all the things that have been spread, there is this officer, I hate mentioning his name, a former officer who is a far right wing, who's been doing the interviews and has been saying, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not even going to comment on Brandon Tatum. No.
I respect that. And that's the right answer for everybody, I believe. And I feel like, because I mentioned him, I'm like, why did I even mention him? Because he doesn't deserve a platform.
No, he does not.
So let's talk about the people, the young men that he's been interviewing. They're saying they're his best friends. Some of them you said that you don't know. One of them even said, "Oh, Nolan would be outraged by the way his parents are handling this." And I'm like, wait, what? Like, why on earth would somebody go on and say that about a grieving family? But
again, distraction. We're not even going to address them or that man. We only want the truth. Again, at the end of the day, I'm going to say it like I've been saying it. The only question we have is what happened to Nolan. That's what we need to know. That's it. That's all.
Dad, you've been here. We saw you yesterday with not only speaking up for your son, but for others as well who have been involved in mysterious deaths. That was a very emotional moment for you, and the vulnerability I saw there. What do you want to say to folks who are your wife is getting, threats. She's being harassed. Those families have been treated like they're a nuisance by police departments, according to the reporting. What do you want to say to America about this?
Like my wife said, just from a parent standpoint, we just want to know what happened. We want a fair and thorough investigation, just like the other families. Because we hurt just like them. If this was their children, they would want to know. They would want to go to every resource they can get to the ends of the world to find out what happened. So then that's all we're doing. We're not accusing anyone. We just want to know what happened to our son because it doesn't add up. Times don't add up, stories don't add up, and it just doesn't. So we just want a fair and thorough investigation so we can grieve properly because we can't, because there are so many answers or so many questions that.
Anito is a fertility monitor that allows you to track 4 hormones related to your fertility.
Counsel.
I don't know if you want to respond to this, or Ben or Christine. The father of one of the young men who's been speaking out has put up a $50,000 reward reportedly. What do you think of that, Ben or Elmore or Christine?
Yeah, so we are happy with anybody who wants to share the objective to get into the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. So we applaud it and we say, yeah, let's all work together to get answers, because we, as we've said continuously, Don Lemon, adamantly, somebody saw something, somebody knows something. I mean, and that's what you want, are answers.
Mm-hmm. Ben, yes, we all do want answers in this. Can you talk to us about that press conference yesterday? Because it's not just, and all of them 18 years old, these young people, right? There was a very emotional press conference with the family and the grandmother. You chose to highlight that at the Urban League. Tell us why.
You know, I am so thankful that Christine and Elmore, Nolan's parents, were open to being able to use the attention that they have been blessed with in the loss of their son to try to help other 18-year-old Black boys who were lost in similar manner as Nolan. Don Lemon, you and I have been doing this for years, where you use your platforms to give, you know, a voice to those who don't have a voice. And when you saw that press conference yesterday, you saw two families completely devastated, where you had that 18-year-old Black boys, three families, all in search of the truth, coming together about what really happened to their children. You had Daniel Irvin, who, like Nolan, they're saying it was an accidental drowning, even though his mother said he was on the swim team. And the fact that he was, you know, on a fishing trip or something with two other white teenagers, he allegedly accidentally drowns, and then they throw away his cell phone, they throw away his clothes, and they delete all their text messages with him. And his mother, Tamika, is out of her mind trying to say, where's my baby? And after 4 days and all-out search where the activist community and everybody are getting involved, then one of the young men and his parents come forward and say, well, he accidentally drowned and we were scared, so we got rid of evidence, and, you know, we are sorry. And so they're charged with tampering with evidence that they lied about. And his mother, Tamika, is saying, if you lied about his cell phone, you lied about throwing away his clothes, you lied about deleting text messages, then how can we believe you when you say he accidentally drowned when my son was a swimmer? And the fact that the Dallas Police Department took 3 months, even after they confessed to doing all of this, Don Lemon, before they did anything. And she adamantly believes that it was because of Nolan Wells that they finally arrested them for tampering with evidence. She didn't think they were going to do anything. And this was just this Black mother by herself just fighting down. Nobody gave them any attention in the media and stuff. And so that's what this is about, trying to make sure people know our children's lives matter too. And then, Don, Tyler Smith in Lexington, Kentucky. I mean, on 4th of July, this is the same day that Nolan goes missing. Her son, Lindsay Smith's son, Tyler, is at the house celebrating 4th of July, and he's the only Black person there. And he somehow ends up shot in the head, dead. 911 is called, the police come, and then they say they were playing Russian roulette, that it was an accidental shooting, that he shot himself. And the police didn't on his hands or anybody's hands. They just take their word for it.
You
And
said no
then, Don, they
gunshot
have
residue test because you cut out, the police didn't do a gunshot residue test, right? And then when she said, when they told her grandmother and they asked, you know, how do you know it was an accidental or whatever? And she said, because they said so, the people with him. That's not an investigation.
That's not an investigation, but thank God for that.
Let me tell you all something. That is absolutely not an investigation, but that's what happens much of the time when things like this happen to Black people among people who don't look like us. Okay, I'm white and I say so. Okay, so there's no need to investigate. We already told you exactly what happened. And please pay attention, beloveds, because this is exactly what they likely thought was going to be the case of Nolan Wells. That we'll just say, oh, it was nothing to see here, you know, no evidence of foul play. He likely accidentally drowned. And that's going to be the end of it. But no, that's not going to happen anymore. They're not going to keep getting away with this stuff. Because whenever we hear these cases, and whenever, from now on, whenever we hear about these cases, we will all investigate. We will all go looking and see what we can find, because you're not going to keep just getting away with this stuff. It's not going to fly, because if it were their people and the shoes on the other foot and they were found as strange fruit, or they were found to be going off with people that look like me at one of them at a time and not showing back up, okay, breathing, there would be hell to pay. Okay, there would be hell to pay. So we're going to have to make sure that they start giving the same attention to our people that they would give if it were theirs. Okay, so that's why we're not going to stop talking. We're not going to be silent. We're not going to let them threaten us, okay, into being quiet, okay, talking about lawsuits and all of that. We'll get to suing. That's what they want to do. But at the end of the day, we're not going to stop. Now let's continue.
That courageous Black grandmother who refused to say, no, I'm not going to just let y'all sweep my grandson death under the rug. She kept asking for the gunshot residue. She kept arguing. So they took a gun that was there at the scene that they said was where he used to kill himself. And they then did an analysis. Down limit, they found out that the casings did not match that gun. And so then they had to investigate everybody who was at the house. Nobody volunteered anything. They went 7 days later to a young man's house, surrounded it, and then finally he came out and offered the gun and said, this is the gun that he shot himself with. And you would think they would say, hold on, why didn't you tell us this the day we went to the house? Why did you tamper with evidence? Why did you take evidence away from the scene? They only charged him with tampering with evidence. They still have not charged anybody with killing Tyler Smith, even though if you didn't do anything wrong, why would you take the gun from the scene of the alleged shooting? And so it's just god awful. And, you know, we have to continue to stay on that. I think all of these cases, we're going to find the answers out to what happened. We're going to find it out. 3 18-year-old Black boys.
Ben, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I have to ask you some legal questions here because it's part of the story, and I want to debunk stuff that's not true.
Yep.
So there have been reports of legal maneuvering from the mom, the parents, to open up the estate, to investigate, possibly sue people who are for misinformation. Are those things true? Do you want to talk about that?
Certainly. Don, as you know, we're not law enforcement, so to get subpoena power and information, we have to have a legal apparatus. So
you'll never know how much dirt and dead skin build up on your back until you try this. Regular sponges cannot reach properly.
State in Nolan Wells' name, and because we have to do
Ben,
that.
Can you back up a little bit? You cut out. I'm sorry. Back up just a little bit. I want everybody to hear this. Pardon me.
Yeah. Let's be clear. Because we're not law enforcement, we're private entities, and we have to use certain legal apparatuses that are available to us. One such thing is we open up estates, which, as we all know, is the only entity that can speak for somebody once they are deceased. And so his mother is over his estate. But once we get that state open down limit, that then gives us the right to be able to subpoena people and entities and corporations to preserve evidence, to preserve information. So that's why we sent those subpoenas out, because we want that evidence to be preserved, because we don't know what is going to be relevant and not relevant, but we don't want it to be destroyed or lost. And so we want to look at the phone records. We want to look at the social media records. We want to look at the text messages, because that may be very valuable information to discovering what happened to Nolan Wells.
Mm-hmm. And this possible intent to sue, is that part of that? Does that go along with those?
You have to say that language to preserve it. Like, we, in anticipation of litigation, we want to make sure you preserve this information. Right now, we don't know where the information is going to lead us. We don't know what the answers are, but we're in a ferocious search for the truth. And based on that, then we will do things that are necessary to get some measure of justice for Nolan Wells' family. We hope and pray that we can find out the answers as to what happened to Nolan, and that the district attorney and the government authorities would do what is appropriate based on the evidence that is ascertained. We want to make sure that this is treated just as if it was anybody's child that was taken, that you will say we want equal justice. And as I've said over and over again, I am for truth, no matter who it implicates or who it exonerates. I am for justice, no matter who it convicts or who it acquits. We are for transparency so everybody can see.
And the question you were asked yesterday about the father of one of the young men saying that that you somehow slandered his son and he's looking at suing.
I don't even know. I don't even know who he is. It's a distraction, Don. I don't even recall calling any of those young men's names ever out of my mouth. But it's a distraction.
I don't recall it either. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not going to be distracted.
So I will say to the parents, while we're here, Mr. Elmore, do you have anything else that you want to say? Transparency from the DA's office, from the state of Mississippi, for what your family's dealing with?
No, just like Mr. Crump said, we just want a truthful and a transparent and a fair investigation. We want to know answers. And until that's on the side, we can agree.
Mom?
Once again, if there is anyone who has original photos, videos, if you saw something, please contact the hotline, just so we, again, can get the answers that we are desperately searching for. And if you really are Nolan's friend and you saw something, you need to call. You absolutely need to call. Because at the end of the day, if it were you and your parents, I'm sure they would be doing the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Christine. Thank you, Ben. Ben, can you hand the phone? Ben, thank you. And I really appreciate you joining us. And I want to make sure that you said everything. Yeah.
Hopefully, we're going to have more breaking news on Lexington, Kentucky. I think some people are about to tell us what really happened in that house with Tyler Smith. Keep you informed.
Thank you. Benjamin Crump.